I think we are live. Just checking, can everybody that's on, can they maybe chat, type some in the chat and say you can hear myself and Johan, or see us, any of us?
On
Yes,
to the
Naomi.
hill.
Welcome, Naomi.
Hello.
Yes, Dave, Claire. Perfect. You can hear us. That's the main thing. It'd be a bad thing if you couldn't hear us and it being a talk. So again, although Johan may have just pictures, but we'll see how it goes. We'll give it a few more minutes. So for those of you that have just joined, welcome to this SoftTest Ireland event. I think this is your first intro to this event or to SoftTest, Johan, is it?
It is, yes.
Good,
Very
perfect,
keen
perfect.
to follow and hear more.
Yeah, so yeah, look at it. We try and do these kind of once a month. Now that we're virtual, we used to do them locally when things weren't so crazy in this, I suppose, this crazy world now as it is. But yeah, looking forward to kind of listen to what you have to say in terms of kind of the future quality software with artificial intelligence and robotics. If I said that fast, I apologize.
Thank you. Are you based in Dublin? Or where are you?
I am in the west of Ireland in Galway. So it's not
Okay.
actually I tell a lie, I'm actually in Mayo. So it's about an hour drive from Galway, so a bit further west. But yeah, it's not actually a bad day today. Myself and Johan were talking earlier on, and I think it's coming into winter time where you are, isn't it?
Yeah, we're definitely into autumn now.
Okay, autumn.
But even our winter is not comparable to European winters. We
Yeah,
can still have a light jersey on and do a barbecue in the sunshine.
yeah,
But we're at Johannesburg. We are at altitudes about 3,000 feet above sea level, so it can be that the air can be quite thin and
yeah.
chilly. But
No,
it's
no.
again after living in the UK for a few years, I'll never complain about weather again.
I wouldn't blame you. No, it's nice to get. That's something I certainly miss in these strange times. Is a bit of sunshine. We haven't had much in this part of the world, anyway. So but look, we'll get started in about a minute. As it says, those of you who have just joined in terms of soft test event, again, it's going to be fairly interactive. So if you have any kind of questions, put them in there. You can see the chat. I can see Avril, Marius, Neve, Dave, a few others people that have just joined. So again, anything you want to kind of ask, please put it in. We'll probably leave questions for Johan for the end of the session. Um, Johan has got himself settled. As I said in the beginning, get yourself sorted, grab a cuppa. I think, Johan, you've grabbed a cuppa, or what have you grabbed there?
I want to. It's staying with the Irish, one of my favorite whiskies, Tullamore. And just to show it's not for just show, I'm actually having one at the moment. So it is 8 p.m. here, so I'm sure I'm entitled to have a whiskey.
Well, exactly. Why not? And it is an evening event, so we can't blame you for that after a hard day's work.
Yeah.
So maybe we get started, and as says, any questions, we'll take them as well. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Do you want me to start? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
if you could. Sorry, no.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you can start, yeah, I'll go on mute and
Okay.
stop talking now.
Okay.
Good on
Super.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Good
much.
stuff. Damien, thank you for the opportunity and hello everyone. It is really an honor to be able to speak to you about a topic that I'm very passionate about. Um, I've done a lot of public speaking, but I must tell you this virtual thing is in a way great because I don't have to travel that much anymore. But you look at a screen and you can't see the people and you can't see the reactions, so it is a little bit daunting. Um, but it is nice because I can put up like I did now. Yeah, I did put on my nicest shirt 5 minutes before just to look a bit more presentable. So everyone, I love this topic about artificial intelligence, robotics. So what I want to do before I start sharing my slides is just tell you a little bit about myself. I lived in the UK or in Hertfordshire, north of London, for a few years. I came back to Johannesburg here in South Africa about 10, 11 years ago. And at that time, I joined a company a local company that works in software testing and software quality management. At the time, even though I understood tech and I've kind of worked in tech all my life, I never understood software quality. So it was quite a learning curve for me. And then in time, it morphed into this DevOps world that we live in now, and then all the terms that we throw around. In time, I got an opportunity to work for Accenture locally here in Johannesburg, where I looked after the quality management team. I learned quite a lot there, working for a big global consulting firm, and all the various tools and frameworks and things that they're doing was quite fascinating. And then I had the opportunity to work for my biggest client for many years, which is one of our first tier local banks called Netbank, about 40, 50,000 employees. And my job it was in the software testing division, and I had to manage the vendors. And we had about 17 vendors. And I think, and if I quickly do the calcs in my head in euro terms, I think we most likely had about a 70 million euro spend on these vendors. And so after all these years of selling and of competing with a lot of these companies, I'm talking about Accenture and IBM and KPMG and Deloitte and some of the mid-tier and smaller companies, I was now on the other side of the table where I was their client. I had to write RFPs and RFQs. I had to look at how these companies pitch for business and how they deal with their clients. And that was one of the most valuable experiences of my life, to actually be on the other side of the table. And then I decided, yeah, I have to go back to consulting because that's really what I love doing. And I joined an organization called IQ Business, where I've been the last 2 years. It's a local homegrown technology consulting firm. We're about 700 people. And I started off working in the quality assurance space, leading the QA team. And then my role changed to more toward the things I've kind of pivoted my career towards, which is robotic process automation, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And it was interesting to see how this world of quality engineering and software engineering and this world where we're going, we hear about Internet of Things and blockchain and machine learning and autonomous things and obviously self-driving cars and all those things. And it was fascinating to kind of enter that world. And I never left the world of software quality behind because ultimately all this stuff that I've just mentioned is software and it needs to be of quality. And it's even more important as we go into the future because think of healthcare, for instance. We've got hospital beds that's managed by software, by Internet of Things devices. We've got heart monitors and pacemakers that's connected to the internet. And if the software is not working, it'll cost lives. Think of how this kind of technology is being weaponized. Think of drones flying over an area with facial recognition, bombing the terrorists. And I mean, there's a whole ethical conversation about that I don't want to go into, whether it's right or wrong and all that. But I surely want that software to work. There's this video that's done the rounds on the internet some months, maybe even a year or two ago, about how they use a mini drone, and I mean, this stuff exists, and it's got an explosive point on it, small, almost like a ballpoint pen, and if it flies up to the skull of a person, it can release it, and it explodes a little hole in the skull, essentially killing the person. And what this kind of fictional video was about was a hostage situation at a university, and the drones would fly in and through facial recognition identify the terrorists and kill them, which is great. But I hope the software works because if my child was in that room, I definitely want the software to work. So I think what I'm trying to say is if you think your job and your role to make sure software works in the right way and that the quality works was important up until now, the road that we're going into the future makes this role even more important and to a large extent a lot more exciting. What I want to do in this talk this evening is really just go through some of the basics. For some of you, it might be kind of old news. You've read about it. You maybe work in this field. A lot of people, though, and this is my experience in dealing with clients, don't understand this technology yet. There's so much hype. There's so much noise. There's so much conferences. There's so much hype cycles and stuff. I find that when I speak to clients that we almost are not comparing apples with apples. Some of my clients would say that robotic process automation is the same as artificial intelligence, and it definitely is not. Or they will just talk about a bot. They will say, listen, get some bots in here to automate stuff for us to fix all our problems. It looks like it's a silver bullet, and it is not. Artificial intelligence definitely can be used right now, and it is used right now. But I think the understanding of what it is where the problem comes in. So what I want to do is quickly see if I can fire up my slides and go through that. And as Damien said, please add your questions to the text or ask it afterwards, and I'm happy to take your questions. And while the slides are firing up, what I want to say is I'm definitely not an expert in this field. I think I know a lot, I've read a lot, and I speak a lot, and I deal with clients, but I'm often daunted by how fast this technology is changing and how much I need to do to make sure I keep myself educated. And that's one of the messages I'd like to land with you this evening. Is that's the one thing you get out of this talk, is to keep on studying. Don't wait for your company or your employer to send you on courses. Read. There's so many great books on Amazon, for instance. There's so many great Udemy and LinkedIn and other kind of courses. Just on YouTube, there's amazing stuff. But the power really is in your hands to make sure you educate yourself, to make sure you understand the lingo. When your client talks about blockchain, the Internet of Things, machine learning, and those kind of things, that you know what they're speaking about. Even if you're not an expert in it, and you don't have to become an expert in it, but make sure you understand what it is. Make sure that you have the ability to consult with your clients and your peers and your colleagues, and to make sure people understand the business applications of this kind of technology. So my first slide, and I'm going to run through this because it's a bit of marketing, but it's just, if you want to follow me, look at my website, aiforbusiness.net. Last year, I did interviews with a lot of global leaders in the field of artificial intelligence, which you can find on my website. I spoke to people at Google, I spoke to people at Stanford University, at Oxford University. Others work in industry and healthcare, which is a great passion of mine, just to see through the different lenses how people view this technology and the work they're doing right now today. Some of you might think this is a view of the future, but I mean, this stuff is here right now. If you've used your mobile phone today, you've most likely used artificial intelligence today, because on our smartphones, almost every one of the applications are one way or another driven by machine learning and artificial intelligence. It's already infused in our lives. It's not just something into the future. It's real. It's here right now. So enough about marketing. So just quickly to take you through some of the topics I want to speak about today. Let me just finish this slide. There we go. I want to touch on how we as people view artificial intelligence and what either you yourself might view it in the way that I'll describe, or you'll definitely find that some of your peers and colleagues and customers will view it in this way. And it's important when we talk about this kind of technology to make sure we're all on the same baseline. What do we mean when we speak about this technology? Misconceptions. I'm going to talk about AI in business. I want to talk about smart automation, which is the field I'm working in now, robotic process automation, which is very relevant to automation testing. It's very interesting if you unpack this. For instance, one of the three main RPA platforms in the world are UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism, and the fourth one, obviously, is Microsoft, the Power Platform, which is really making great strides. They're doing some amazing things. Now, UiPath, whom I work with closely, have great offerings around automation testing, to use the bots for automation testing. So that's really something I want to encourage you to Google and read about and see how you can use this kind of technology if you're not familiar with it already. Then I want to speak a little bit about how testing and testers are viewed. In my work across the world, when I was focusing on testing and quality assurance and DevOps kind of work, this is what I picked up when I spoke to my clients and to some of my peers in the software development lifecycle. I want to also touch on how testing is changing and where it's going, in my view. I want to talk about quality engineering as a concept rather than just testing, and look at some future skills that we need for ourselves. And then I want to touch on how artificial intelligence works in testing, not just testing AI systems, but using AI to test. So that's essentially what I want to cover this evening. So I often use this slide when I talk about this topic, is how do you view artificial intelligence, or when you speak to your customers or your colleagues, is what do they think? Because on the one hand, we've got this evil robot, dystopian future, zombie kind of view, and we can thank Hollywood and movies for that, because whenever you look or watch a movie or something on AI, it's most likely evil, blowing smoke out of its nose with red blinking eyes. I mean, if you put artificial intelligence in Google and you do an image search, you'll see a lot of monster kind of pictures. The other view is the other picture that you see where it's collaborative, where it's the bots or the AI working with us. And that is, I think, the more accurate view. Now, we can have a very philosophical discussion about where we're going when we speak about artificial general intelligence and super intelligence. There's a book by Nick Bostrom, who's a professor at Oxford, called Super Intelligence, which is really worth reading if you haven't heard of it or haven't read it yet. Nick Bostrom speaks a lot about this potential future scenarios. We think about genetic re-engineering. So imagine you can take the gene, you can assess the gene pool of the father and the gene pool of the mother, and you can actually re-engineer the gene pool so that the weaknesses and the sicknesses that comes through the gene pool is not replicated into that child. What if the parents say we want a child with dark hair and blue eyes who's 3 years old and well built and who's not prone to have cancer like we've always had in our family, for instance, or dementia or something. So there's a lot of ethical issues that's coming to the fore with the technology. I've already touched on the weaponization of this technology. I've read that two of the biggest roles in AI into the future is that of philosophers and ethicists. So people who work around the topic of ethics and privacy, big topic. Think of what happened in the US and elsewhere over the last few months regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, how the discrimination and the biases in the AI and facial recognition, for instance, AI and facial recognition is not that good at recognizing people of a dark skin tone, or females for that matter. I mean, it's a massive problem. Because AI, just to be frank, is to a large extent being created by a bunch of white guys. And we put our biases into the work that we do. So, and then think of now taking that into the future. Think of approving bank loans. Think of approving educational entry into university based on things like facial recognition with all these biases involved in it. So there is an element where it's the evil robot, but there's definitely the element of collaboration with this technology. Great quote I read a few months back, and I cannot remember who said this, but he said that AI will possibly destroy us one day in the future. But right now, there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of great companies to be built. So how can we, in our craft of software engineering and software quality engineering and the like, how can we collaborate with this kind of technology rather than try and avoid it, almost like the proverbial ostrich with its head in the sand? Because the world is going to move on with or without us. And we need to jump on that bandwagon and educate ourselves and upskill ourselves and see how this technology can actually benefit us to do a better job. So I've kind of touched already on this misconceptions about AI. I've already said that we throw these terms around IoT, Internet of Things, Bitcoin, machine learning, all those things, and there's differences, and a lot of people I speak to struggle to understand the various differences. Just artificial intelligence and all the subsets around it. There's so many things that we need to understand. Think of natural language processing. Think of artificial intelligence chatbots or conversational artificial intelligence, which is becoming mainstream these days. Think of intelligent automation, where we take the robotic process automation platform, but we connect it to artificial intelligence, machine learning, and conversational AI. So, for instance, I phone my bank, and this is where the so-called Turing test comes in. I might not know I'm not speaking to a human being. I'm speaking to an artificial intelligence that, because of my persona and because of the data that the bank has on me, speaks to me in a way that I understand and that I like. I might be a 16-year-old kind of gangster kind of person, or I might be a 60-year-old serious investor. The way we speak to those clients differ, and if the data is mature and if we understand our clients, the conversational AI will speak to that person in a way that he or she will resonate with. But now it's kicking off the processes now in the background. So I might say to this artificial intelligence chatbot that I want a home loan, or I want a new or a replacement credit card, or something like that, or I want to inform the bank that I've changed my address. Now the process needs to kick off in the background seamlessly, and autonomy, or it being autonomous, is also a key word with this kind of technology. In other words, with minimum or no human involvement or interaction. So I tell the conversational AI, my credit card is lost, I need a new one. So it automatically stops the old card, it automatically starts issuing the new card, and it asks me, do you want it delivered to your house? Can I deliver it to your closest branch? And it just happens seamlessly or touchless. So touchless automation or touchless enterprise is definitely a key concept we need to think about. But people misunderstand this technology. They think it's the so-called silver bullet. So as an example, a lot of the clients I've been dealing with have fundamental business process problems. Processes are not documented, they are not understood, they're not sufficient, they're not streamlined. If you think of the things like lean engineering and things like that, now they think if we're just going to plug some sort of robotic process automation or some sort of AI on top of it, it's just going to fix our world. And if your data is a mess and if your processes are a mess, AI and related technology will just essentially exemplify or increase whatever you've got. So if it is a mess, it'll become a massive mess. So when I speak to clients, I often say, let's just breathe, take a few steps back. Number one, what is the business objective that you're trying to achieve? Forget about platforms, forget about technology, and forget about AI, machine learning, all that stuff. What are you trying to achieve? Because maybe artificial intelligence is not the answer to your problem, or it's not the answer right now. Maybe you need a process re-engineering exercise. Maybe you need to upskill your people and so forth. So that's an important thing, I think, is not to just jump on the bandwagon, have a business first conversation and a people first conversation, and not a technology or a platform first conversation. So there are a lot of misconceptions about it. Briefly, just want to touch on some of the kind of companies that use AI. On the one hand, we have the so-called AI first companies, and a very good example here is Uber. So imagine you work in a company that started off from day one using artificial intelligence and machine learning and related technologies. That must be amazing. But I can bet you almost everyone on this call right now is not working for a company like that. We're working for older companies, but I'll get to that. Then we get the so-called trailblazers. We know them. It's Google and Alibaba and Facebook and Apple, Microsoft, IBM, and many others. These are companies that's doing amazing work in this field. That's putting millions and billions of dollars into research. And they are really the trailblazers. They are the ones just shaping the way for us, and we need to follow. Many of us in this call right now are not working for Google or for Apple or for IBM. Then you get the startups, and there are thousands of them across the world doing amazing things. And typical of startups, a lot of them fail, a lot of them have to pivot. But some of the best research and some of the best technological products and advances are coming from fairly small, very niche organizations across the world. Here in South Africa, for instance, we have a number of really exciting startups, and a lot of them are being bought up by the big global technology firms. But imagine you're working for a startup. That's kind of daunting, but it's also exciting. I can bet you almost every one of us on this call are working for what I call a traditional business. So it might be a big bank, a big telco, or an insurance company, or just an organization that's been around for 20 or 50 or 100 years. They're old ways of thinking, old ways of working, federated. The data is not structured. The whole data strategy might be flawed. The understanding of where this technology is going might be a problem. And that's the trick for us as consultants and as professionals in this field is, yes, we can learn a lot from Uber and we learn a lot from Google and from the startups. But how do we apply it to our business that's not used to this kind of technological advance, that's slow maybe in operating, that's slow in adopting things, that's very political? So keep that in mind. So you have to look at this technology through the lens of the company you're working for or the clients that you're working with. You can't just say Google is doing it, so let us do it. Learn what you can from Google or from IBM or the others, but apply it to your organization. Banks, for instance, are often unionized. There's a lot of legislation around it and governance, and these kind of things will inhibit technological and digitization kind of change. But it's also good that those kind of things are in place to make sure that our banks stay stable, that our banks survive if there's another financial crisis and those kind of things. So if you work for a bank or if you work in the financial industry, you might not be able to affect the change as much or as quickly as you would like to. So if your CIO went to Google or went to Silicon Valley and he or she comes back and they just want to change everything, it's great. At the end of the day, the boss says you should do it, and then we kind of have to do it. But we have to apply it to our current situation, the socio-economic situation in our own country. Think of what this epidemic has been doing to us. Think of what the levels of unemployment and those kind of things. Think of what process automation and intelligent automation is going to do about the employment of masses of people. Think about the upskilling of these people. Some of them might have been in the same job for 20 years. So these are some real things we need to really think about. And there are no real quick and fast kind of answers for them. Just quickly have a sip of Irish whiskey. Go to my next slide. Just a few points around the business value of artificial intelligence. So remember this, AI is there to solve business problems. That's why I said earlier it should be led by business and from a people perspective and not purely from a technology or a platform perspective. Because what is the business problem you're trying to solve? And this is one of the favorite questions I ask clients. And if they've already kind of made up their minds that they need artificial intelligence, it's often a bit of an awkward meeting. Because people will say, we need artificial intelligence. And I will say, to do what? And that's normally when the meeting becomes a little bit weird. And it often comes back to, as I said earlier, just processes not being in place, or the data strategy is flawed, or their customer experience or the customer journeys are not mature. Later on, we can look at AI and modeling and machine learning and all those other kind of exciting things. What is the business problem that you're trying to solve? An AI journey has an organizational-wide impact. Never forget that. It will cause an organizational shift. It cannot be done in isolation. Yes, you can maybe start your journey as a POC of sorts somewhere in the business, get a success, and then get that kind of momentum to grow it throughout the whole business. But this technology will fundamentally change the way we work, the way we do business. So it cannot just be the kind of dream of somebody somewhere and they want to do it. What is the business problem we're trying to solve? And remember, it's going to change the way we work. So think of target operating model. Think of change management. Think of using something like design thinking to help your organization. People fear this technology. They naturally fear losing their jobs. They fear that young people with greater skills will come in and that their jobs will slowly become redundant. So we never should forget what an immense impact this kind of initiatives have on the organizations we work with or work for. And we have to find a way of taking people by the hand and taking them on this journey with us. So AI will optimize decision making. It will result in faster responses to targeted questions, processing high volumes of data, which us humans can't do. And this is important, this last point, recognizing patterns that we might not be looking for. This is the value of this technology. So we might ask some specific questions. For instance, if you're a big telco, you might say, how many of our clients live in a specific geographical area? Or how many of our clients are of a specific income bracket? And so forth. But if the data is mature and the models run through it, it might show you things you didn't know. You might, for instance, find that male students at a certain age are struggling in a certain way with the application, or female professionals at a certain age, and that's just from a gender point of view. But I mean, there's so many different ways to distinguish. It could, as I said, geographically, people in this specific town is struggling with our services, which if you're a telco might say that the mobile phone towers in the area are not working correctly, and so forth. So On the one hand, you can ask this technology if your data is mature, targeted questions, and get the models and the responses from it. But it should also tell you things you didn't know, things you didn't ask it to look for. And that's where the real business value comes in. Just briefly want to touch on intelligent automation. So on this graph, you can just see kind of the how it's been maturing. So we've been trying to optimize our processes. We've tried to automate our processes. A big topic the last few years has been robotic process automation. More and more we speak about intelligent automation. And as AI mature, and we're not quite there yet, we're going to get to the so-called hyper automation. So let me just open all the little blocks here and talk you through this. A way that I find helpful to explain to people is that up until robotic process automation is, as you can see on the slide here, it's what I call doing technology. It's almost like it's a slave. You tell it what to do and it does it. If you've had a successful RPA implementation, I mean, we're talking here about robotic agents that works 24/7, doesn't take leave, doesn't go on strike, doesn't get sick. It's a lot more accurate and a lot faster than human beings. But it does what we tell it to do. So for instance, we might say when an email comes in from a client, you recognize from the wording or the sentiments what the client's asking for. And if it is, I want you to call me, or I want an increased overdraft facility on my bank account, etc., then based on recognizing what the client's asking for, it then, like a slave, does what we ask it to do. Where intelligent automation is not doing technology, it's learning technology. It's learning the sentiment of the customer. It's taking the various data sets we have on that client, and it's forming patterns and it's making suggestions. And if you think again of a conversational AI chatbot agent, it's learning from what the customers are asking, where previous technology will not learn. It will maybe accurately report. We might have sentiment analysis and the like. But imagine we can actually automatically, or there's that word again, autonomously, change and upgrade our processes according to what we're experiencing from our clients without human intervention. And that's where we're going with intelligent automation. From back office to front office, which is all about customer experience. From high frequency repetitive tasks to unpredictable tasks. And now we start bringing in natural language processing, machine or computer vision, deep learning and the like. So that's really where we're going. So as a tester, as a quality engineer, think about what skills and exposure you need to still be relevant where this world is going. If you're the bank you're working for saying we're now going from just pure robotic process automation to intelligent automation, we're going to really bring in machine learning and AI and the like. We're going to bring in Internet of Things. We're going to connect to different sensors that will send us data. We want to build models to really look at sentiment analysis. We want to look at churn possibility in our clients and the like. I want you to build me a test strategy to make sure that we quality assure this process. And I want you to employ the right kind of people with the right skills. Will you be able to do that? So think about that. Think where this world is going. Some of the basics of software testing and quality engineering will never change. But do we understand this new kind of world? And do we know how to use this technology? And I'm going to touch on some of these things further on in this talk about using AI and machine learning to help us quality assure and test better. How do they see testers? Now, I'm sure a lot of you will resonate with what I'm saying. In the decade or so that I worked in testing, I often was surprised that not only my clients, but many of my peers looked down on us as testers. They almost saw us as second-hand citizens, or I used to call it the stepchildren of the SDLC. And the sentiment was almost, I mean, you couldn't become a programmer, you couldn't become a machine learning engineer, so you just ended up doing testing. And for a lot of people, that was true. But the world has changed so much, and I'm sure a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Especially if you think of DevOps and squads, and we're all working together now. Quality engineering, like good quality engineering, starting at architecture already, all through the process, not just here at the end. You know, traditionally, you all know what I'm talking about. We tested right at the end when there was almost no time or no budget left, and then they still blamed everything on us. That world is changing. Now, you might work in an organization where the maturity is still low, where they still look at testing or QA like they did 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. But it's up to us to change this perception. If you work in a DevOps squad, you're the voice of quality. You need to work with the business analysts and the developers, and the machine learning engineers and the quants and all of those people, and really make sure that everyone has a quality mindset. And this is stuff you've all most likely heard about. This is stuff some of you might actually live day to day. But the world of that we've lived in is changing, and the traditional view of testing is changing, but some organizations have the maturity where they still see it. It's almost like a grudge purchase. We're spending money on all these tests. What the hell are we actually doing? Why are we employing them? We have to up our game through self-education, through thought leadership, and we also need the business skills to be able to stand up to people. Not just, I mean, you can be the best test automation expert in the world, but do you have the business acumen to understand budgeting, to understand return on investment, to understand models like, let me just think of the words for some reason I'm forgetting about now, cost to serve and cost to income. In other words, for every €1 I'm spending, 30 cents is spent on QA, and why is that? So to be able to stand up to the architects and the BAs and whoever and state your claim and say, this is why we need to change our strategy. So don't just focus on those technical skills, which are very important. Think about those business acumen skills to stand up to people like business owners who do not understand testing or this kind of technology. How do you explain what you do in terms they will understand that are business terms and not just tools and frameworks? I quickly want to go through just some steps in how QA has been evolving in my view. And this slide is roughly based on a slide that I saw by Tricenter. So I just need to give them a shout out if you would. Let me just bring up some of these things quickly. So classical or manual testing that took forever, agile testing, which became a big thing a few years ago. Some of us might be working in these DevOps squads, this continuous testing, CI/CD pipelines, and those kind of things. But for most of us, I don't think we're there yet. For instance, if you're working for a big bank, there might be pockets where they're already working in kind of continuous testing. But for most of us, it's still agile testing, if not absolutely just manual testing. And sometimes it's our fault because we don't upskill ourselves, but more often than not, it's obviously the project or the team we work in or the environment we work in. But we're already now in intelligent testing, where we need to look at testing artificial intelligence and machine learning, robotic process automation, quantum computing, Internet of Things, predictive analytics, and the list goes on. And this is where most organizations find themselves, in my experience. And I don't know if you'd agree or not, and I'd love to see your comments as we go along. In most organizations that we are going to be working in for the foreseeable future, it will still be classical testing, aspects of agile testing. Now and then we'll kind of touch on CI/CD, DevOps stuff, but for most of us, especially if you work in a big, old corporate, it will still be in that block that I've highlighted. So even if you work there, don't be a victim of your circumstances. You don't wait for others to offer you training or to upskill you. Start thinking about how are you going to work in this continuous testing world? How are you going to work in the world of intelligent testing using these autonomous, intelligent kind of technologies to do quality assurance, quality engineering? And that's what my next slide brings me. It's from just a tester to a quality engineer. There's a lot we can say about this topic, but think about it and Google it, read up on it. How do you just become or change from just testing at the end of the SDLC, hopefully there's time and money left, to really influencing how the product is shaped, how the business strategy is shaped, how to infuse quality from an engineering principles point of view right throughout the process. It's imperative for your own career to get these things, to understand these things and to master them. Quality engineering as opposed to just testing. I want to almost done, and I want to just touch on a few things relevant to quality engineering and AI. So if you look at the kind of job posts that's out there on LinkedIn, if you look at some of the requirements that you start seeing from some of your clients, these are some of the the phrases you'll hear, smart testing, or I need people with statistical skills, I need people with mathematical skills. I want somebody who's an AI QA strategist or an AI test expert. So ask yourself, if you see these job posts on LinkedIn or elsewhere, will you be able to apply? Do you have the skills and the training and the understanding to say, I am an AI QA expert, or I have enough statistical skills, or my mathematics is good enough to understand these models? It's almost actuarial kind of models. And that's why a lot of actuarial people are working in AI these days. Now, I don't know about you, I don't have 5 or 7 years right now to go and study and become an actuarial person, and I don't think I'm smart enough in any case. But this is the kind of stuff we'll see more and more. Now, this is just the technical stuff, and then there's the business element, business skills, business drivers, understanding budgeting, understanding other, as I've already referred to, cost to income kind of models and so forth. But sorry, I'm getting all these WhatsApps with my phone there. Will you yourself or the team you're managing be able to do these kind of things? Do you have the depth of statistical skills? Do you have the depth of mathematical skills? Can you have quant skills, and do you have AI skills? So just think about that. Think about maybe the old traditional bank that you're working for and the kind of projects that's going to come down the line in the next short few years as it relates to this kind of technology. A little bit about quality engineering and AI, and this is from my experience in the last few years. So test case optimization, very important. And if we use modeling and machine learning, we can really do amazing things here. So a few years back when I worked at this bank, we did a POC with one of the big global consulting firms. And I just want to give you an idea of what is possible, almost the art of the possible. On a big program, we had roughly about 100,000 test cases. It's massive. And through using this platform, through using machine learning and modeling, we picked up the duplicated and the inefficient test cases, and they were massive. At the end of the day, and this is where the return on investment and the business case comes in. So think of this, 100,000 test cases. And through using this platform, we realized that we can actually use only a tenth of it. So we only actually needed around about 10,000 test cases. But our coverage increased with about 40%. Massive business case right there. So it's using this kind of technology to make sure that the way we test is done better, that we remove waste, duplications, that we remove test cases that are no longer efficient or, as I said, duplicated. So and through that modeling, create other test cases that are needed. Look at defects pattern, again, modeling, machine learning kind of patterns, and then bringing in robotic process automation in the way we automate our test cases. We need hours to talk about it, but if I can just kind of whet your appetite a little bit to read up more on this, if you don't already work in this kind of field. There's so much benefit that this technology is bringing to us in the quality engineering space, but we have to understand it and know how to use it. And I'm essentially ending off with this slide. The only thing I can really leave you with, all of us are figuring this out as we're going. But there's no longer an excuse not to learn. There's so much available online and in various kind of resources. So you have to create this hunger to learn more. And whatever your interest might be in various different things, but find that thing. Just every day, drive yourself, learn more, keep on reading. You'd be surprised after a while how much more you know than most people around you. Keep on learning, keep on experiencing or exploring how you can use this technology in your career. And that's the one thing I want to leave you with. Our world is changing, it's here right now. Our careers as quality engineers and testers is rapidly changing. We have an important role to play. Think about what I said in the beginning, victimization. Think about AI ethics, privacy. Think about the future of our children and how applications will change their lives more than they've ever changed our lives. So we have a massively important role to play to ensure that these platforms and these software systems work right first time, not to kill people, not to lose lives, not to reveal people's privacy and the like. So on that basis, I encourage you to keep on learning it. That is my talk, and I'm going to stop sharing. And I think we've got 15 or so minutes left, but I hope it made sense. Again, as I said, guys, I look at myself in the screen and I sure as shit just hope that it makes sense and I'm going to drink my whiskey.
No, listen, thank you very much, Johan, for that. Very insightful. Obviously, a lot of the people on this call would and still are involved in testing, and again, hopefully, people got something from this. A couple of questions coming in, Johan, if you've
Yeah, of
got
course.
time to kind of answer a few of them. One question coming in here is, in your opinion, would introducing AI or predictive analytics in test automation be a good place for teams to start with?
Absolutely. Yeah,
That's from
Naomi,
Naomi.
absolutely. How to do it is the trick. And again, think of it's almost like building a house. If you've ever built a house, or I once or I got a contractor to build a house. What frustrated me for weeks and weeks and weeks, it seemed like nothing was happening because they were building the foundation. Once the foundation was laid, the house came up quite quickly. So make sure that your team's understanding of this technology, but also the maturity of your data and the maturity of test cases and the maturity of your organization, that's the first place to start. But the answer is absolutely yes. And it's not even really, in my opinion, a choice. We have to start using things like machine learning, predictive analytics, and the way we automate our test cases, the way we quality engineer these things. So absolutely yes, lay the right foundation. That's a good place to start. And I hope that answer helped a little bit at least.
And probably follow on then from Claire is like, do you have any kind of any resource, any sites, any books that you recommend? How did you start? Like, what kind of resource did you use?
Absolutely. I remember so I referenced Nick Bostrom's book, Super Intelligence, but it's quite a long read and it's very philosophical. But it's stuff I love. I love the philosophy behind this technology, and it's not everyone's cup of tea. Um, it's a book by Andrew Burgess. If you look at it, I'm just trying to think what the title is, but or maybe what I could do, Damien, is to send you a list that you could maybe distribute. But there
That'd be
definitely
good,
are a
yeah.
number of, yeah, there are definitely a number of books that'll help you especially from a business perspective, understand this technology. And then, there's, and some of you might be aware of them, Society in the Netherlands. There's, what's his name? Rick Massey, I think his name is, you might know him, Damien, but they do
Yeah,
a lot of work around smart automation in the testing space. And they've a few months back, brought out a book about that will really help people on this call. So I'll definitely also send that on to you guys. And then there are some exciting books on smart automation as well. So, and it really comes back to the Claire says Rick has talked SoftTest, and Rick is amazing. Look, my first language is Afrikaans, which is kind of like Dutch or Flemish. So I struggle to understand him. So I don't know if your first language is English, if you'd understand him, but he is amazing. It's an amazing guy. I've often spoken with him. Um, so from a QA and testing point of view, there are some great resources and people. From a business understanding point of view, there are some really good books. From a looking into the future point of view, so I'm just going to send you a whole list of stuff, Damien. Send it to people, and you pick.
oh, well, of course.
Keep on reading. I mean, it's like $5 for a book. There's really no excuse not to educate yourself.
No, perfect. And one from Kevin there, like the process of rationalization from 100,000 test cases to 10,000. Like, can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, how that AI help with that process?
Yeah. So look, in that specific case, when I was at the bank, one of our main vendors was IBM. And they've got the Watson platform, and Watson's been around for many years, and there definitely are other great platforms as well. So it doesn't have to be IBM, although in our case they really worked with us. So they had a test case optimization model. The big challenge we had, because they said, please just give us all these test cases, and we didn't even know where to find it because it was all over the show. And that was a result of the maturity of our team, because a lot of it was the so-called unstructured data. So it might be in some test system or test management system. Some of it was just on paper or somewhere on somebody's hard drive. So the big part of this project was to try and get these test cases together. which is most likely where a lot of organizations will struggle initially. But then you feed these test cases into the platform, and it will start looking at the patterns. So it'll look at duplications, test cases that roundabout do the same kind of things, and it's not entirely without human intervention. So because it needs to come back to you and say these 5 or 50 or 100 test cases seem to do the same thing. What do you think? And because there may be remember these models learn as they go. And if you implement it for the first time in your environment, it's not like it's coming with the knowledge of 100,000 other organizations. It needs to understand your organization, what you're testing. So there's a lot, and again, back to the fact that it's not a silver bullet. There's a lot of groundwork to get this right. Once you get it right, and once you start seeing the patterns, and you start seeing the duplications, that's when the benefit comes in. And that's where the coverage increases. But it also shows you the gaps. Is what are you not testing, or where are your test cases not adequate for you, where you're going? So it is on the one hand about the platform, and there are many platforms, but it's about the maturity of the organization, and that's where these things fall flat. And so the platform is great, but can you actually give it what it needs? Because the data is like the petrol for the engine when it comes to these kind of platforms. And if your data, your test cases are not matured or centralized or accessible, that's where the problem comes in. I hope that answers the question to some extent.
Oh, very good. One of the questions then is around kind of, you know, you talked about DevOps and, kind of to get DevOps into an environment, you need, buy-in. But same thing with the AI, are you seeing resistance from, and how much resistance is happening from companies that want to get involved in AI testing or intelligent testing?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of resistance. I want to say the older the organization, the more federated, and hence the more political structures, the bigger the problem. Because on the one hand, they want you to, because they see it as the silver bullet, they want you to so you're struggling with testing, just plug in this AI thing and it'll solve all our problems. And then this is now your business stakeholder, for instance, program manager, whatever. And they want to know, why is nothing happening? Why is nothing changing? So there is a lot of resistance in the sense that people don't understand this technology. They don't understand what is, again, back to that metaphor of the house. They don't understand the amount of work to get the foundation right to successfully build the house. The building of the house is quick. Foundation takes a lot of time. So your delays and your real issues and frustrations might not be in your control. It might be in the control of your business stakeholder, for instance, or your customer. And that's so when you talk to your clients about this kind of technology and about using our machine learning and testing, you have to make sure that you don't paint too rosy of a picture. That it's not just something that's going to happen overnight. If you lay the foundation and you get it right, it will really be amazing. There will be great returns. The cadence will increase and all those things. But there's dependencies on you and your team, but there's a great deal of dependencies on your stakeholders, the quality of the data, and many other things. So there is a lot of resistance. So don't just jump in on it. So you have to have a plan, even if it's like a year or a 2-year plan. Is what are the steps you need to take, even if it's baby steps, to take your stakeholder, your team on this journey to get to that place. And in some organizations, it's going to take 5 years, and some it might take less. But we have to really be tactical, and we have to have a lot of wisdom in making sure we're getting this right. Because I think once you finally win over your stakeholders and you fail them, then the battle is almost lost. Because then to convince them again, it's going to be a mission.
No, that's perfect. Does anybody else have any other questions they want to ask Johan? Everyone is good.
What I want to
Some
say,
good
well,
questions out there.
people they're very good, eh? What I want to say, guys, and I'm just going to be honest with you now. I am often so daunted by how little I know about this topic and how much I still have to learn. And that's why I never want to come over as some sort of an expert. I know a lot, I guess, and I've read a lot and speak a lot and I've worked on projects, but you should never look at anyone presenting and thinking, wow, how can I ever know as much or whatever? Because if you look behind the scenes, then I often say as a joke, if people really know what I know, they'll never invite me to speak anywhere. That's just my own issue. But I say it also to encourage you. I mean, just drive yourself, learn and stuff. You're smart people. You can do great things. So don't leave it to the so-called experts, whoever they are. You can be the expert. So just take the bull by the horns and go for it, and learn and teach and practice and fail 100 times. Now I'm becoming a bit of a preacher here, but I mean, that's really, I
No,
think, the key thing, Damon.
you're dead right. I think in our industry we should be continuously learning. Never mind continuous deployment and integration, we should be continuously learning. I think that's always key in our industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But listen, we do appreciate your time, Johan. I know it is late. We certainly have gone global with the SoftTest event this tonight, and I do appreciate everyone else taking the time out of their busy kind of evening. And again, to join us. And as I said, it's a very interesting topic, good discussion, and some good questions. And I do appreciate it, Johan. Hopefully, we can get you back again soon.
Thank you. Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity, guys. And just keep on going. And I'm there if you want to ask things. And half the time I'll say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out with you. I'll send you some resources, Damien, to share with the team. And
Perfect.
it was a privilege. And I wish I was with you in person. That would have been great.
Next time.
Maybe. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you so
everyone.
much.
Have a good evening. Thanks very much now. Bye bye.
Cheers, Cheers. Damon, thanks a lot. We'll chat
No worries.
soon.
Have a good one.